Hello, everyone. Hi, thanks for your patience. We've been setting up all the lighting. I'm assuming you can see me really well. Hi to Kat and everybody. I know you guys have been waiting, so thanks so much for that. We will have ability to go have some chat going on tonight. What I would say to you, though, is if you have a burning question for me, to put that burning question in the comments, and then Kat will relay that over to me. The reason being is that we want to make sure that I get to those questions. Now, what's tonight's live all about? Well, first of all, we need to figure out a way at the moment to cope in a crisis. A lot of us are facing a crisis, something that we've never had to cope with before, and we need to find some strategies to not only stay calm, but also to manage our own emotions and to make sure that we really come out of this crisis with not only a plan of action as soon as possible, but also we come out of it bolder and stronger than ever. So first of all, a bit about me. Just why would you watch this? What do I know about it? Well, there's two things really that I would say that would qualify me to help guide you to stay calm in a crisis, and that's one thing that happens in crises, and certainly prolonged crises, is that there's a sense of uncertainty, and there's also a sense of dealing with adversity as well. So, I've dealt with a certain amount of adversity myself. So, for example, my uncle took his own life, and you may not think about it to look at me now. Those who know me, I'm a very confident person, able to come across, to present in front of hundreds of people at once, go live from 3 different devices, eventually at once, right? But I think other things that I faced is at one point I had to, make my way out of not one but 2 abusive relationships, and I'm here to not only say that there's life after things like that, there's life after adversity, there's life after crises, but actually your life can get a lot better once you learn to do these 3 things that I'm going to talk about in the video tonight. So I do know we have some questions. So again, Kat, I'm going to rely on you to send me those. I'm putting my phone into Do Not Disturb because I want to give you guys my complete focused attention. But I know we'll get to those. So the first thing is about, we've called this staying positive, and I think sometimes positivity gets a bit of a bad rap, and I think sometimes it's just bandied around as this good thing to do. But really, I want to describe to you what I actually mean by staying positive, what actually that means for me. And it isn't just a, hey, rainbows and everybody's brilliant, right? And just sort of making out like everything's going to be fine no matter what. So what I define staying positive as, again, just my definition, is it's maintaining a can-do attitude. Okay, so with a can-do attitude, even if it hit the fan, right, you can still navigate your way through it, and you can still be useful to your clients, you can still be useful to your family, and you can still get progress and move forward for yourself as well. Again, if you're joining us in the live feed, don't forget to do a comment so we know you're there and I can answer any questions you might have. So hi guys, thanks for joining in. Now, quite liking this theatrical lighting. So firstly, as I say, we're going to look at how we maintain this positivity and how we manage ourselves in difficult times. So the first thing to do is to stop ignoring that there's a problem. Okay, so the first thing is not to insert positivity into a situation that's very difficult. On the contrary, the first way to gain a can-do attitude is to really take stock and assess the situation, and actually what's really going on here, not what the media tells you is going on, not what someone else tells you is going on, but actually what's going on for you. And you can do that in many different ways. You can journal that. You can, do a verbal, I would say verbal diarrhea, because I would never say such a thing, but you can get your phone out and you can, just open your heart. You can write that down. You can do it audibly. It doesn't really matter. The key thing is that you need to document a little bit and get all the thoughts that are buzzing around your head. Like if you can imagine in a crisis, your brain's a bit like a pinball machine, right? And the pinball is just going woo everywhere. And what we need you to actually do is to start identifying these symbols and putting them, right? What thought is this, and where does it need to be filed? Is this a useful thought that I keep having? Is this a bit of inspiration which keeps coming back to me and I need to start listening to? Or is this a not useful item? Is this something that used to be told to me? Like, for example, have you always been told that you're messy? Or have you been told that you're not good with maths? Or whatever it might be, something that keeps going around your head and is not useful, but you need to acknowledge it's there. You can't just magic things away. And you know about not magicking things away, because I'm sure if you haven't already, once we go live just to this side of me, or possibly to this side, you'll see a link to the COVID wrap that I did. And it was really around, you know, how we can beat COVID-19, sort of the elephant in the room, right? How we can beat that. And it was a little bit of fun, but it was also intended to be educational and also fun and also kind of a bit catchy so that it stayed in your head. So just like with that, you've got to zone in and focus in on some specific things that are happening in your mind, okay? And then you've got to, once you've identified them, and then you can start actually grading them out in terms of their importance level, in terms of their truthfulness level, and that kind of thing. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But I want to jump onto a question, because we have a question. Great. So we have, so how do we currently cope in lockdown to stay positive? Absolutely. So the reason that I feel qualified again to talk to you about this, why should you listen to me about staying positive in lockdown, is because in the last 20 or so years that I've been in my working life, less than 3 or 4 years of those, I had a salary job. And so I had very little uncertainty at some times. I didn't know sometimes where the next paycheck was coming from. And I certainly didn't spend some of those years not really having a financial plan, not knowing where my clients and my work was going to come from. And that's the reality for a lot of people now. So I'll take it from that angle, and then I'll also take it from the confinement angle as well. So from the first angle is, if you're in lockdown and you're not used to it, it's a bit of cabin fever, then again, I'm going to say to you that one of the things that you can do is if you're allowed to go outside for an hour a day, so that's the first thing. So you can plan the hour. I've been doing 2.5 hours, but anyway, you can plan that hour. You can look forward to that hour. You can take control of that hour, and you can wander out. Again, maintaining that distance, staying 6 feet away, right? But you can, so have a think about something that you really like to do, that helps you feel good, that makes you feel good, that makes you feel energized and powerful and in control. And in that hour, do focus on that thing that helps you feel like that. So if it's an outdoor thing, it might be going for a run, it could be taking the dog out, etc. Obviously tiring the kids out a little bit on bikes, things like that. So it's really use that hour. Imagine, like, let's say, you have prisoners, they only get some time in the yard. You need to really use that time in the yard, right? Because you'll know the distinction between people that come out of prison with, law degrees and have completely bettered themselves, right? And then you have people that go to prison and they're back in 5 minutes. And the difference is focusing on who you want to be and focusing on what's in your control. And that's the biggest thing. So what's in your control is that you can choose what you do on a day-to-day basis. You can choose what you listen to. You can choose what you watch. And as I say, you can choose what you do with your hour of exercise. But the lockdown itself is not in your control. So last point on this one I would say is make sure that you focus not on the lockdown, because that's something that you can't change. You want to look around and take a little bit of an inventory. Look around your life. Look around your day to day. Look around your next 5 minutes. Those are with me, obviously. But look around in your situation and think, I can't control the fact that we've got to stay indoors. But I can control, as I say, what I watch, what I read, what I listen to, how much I exercise, what I eat, to an extent, if you didn't stock up. And I hope you weren't one of those people who went crazy panic buying. Definitely put your Costco card away, okay? So yeah, do that little inventory. Be really, really purposeful and really, really be very deliberate around what you want to do. And the second thing is to, if there's been a hobby or a lifetime passion or a DIY project or something like that that you've been putting off and putting off and putting off. And to be fair, you've probably started that already because a week of boredom has set in. But if you haven't, and I talk about this more in there's another video coming up around how to it's around how to one of the best ways of survivalist, and I've prepared a 4-point plan on that, a survivalist video. And certainly in that, again, it's about what's that thing that you always promised yourself you would do and you never got around to doing. Is it learning watercolors? Is it painting the bathroom? Is it teaching the kids a foreign language? I'm sure, and I know because you follow me and we're connected. Try not to get about my hair like this. I like things to look good. Anyway, so but yeah, there must be something in your life that you've been putting off. And so have a think about all those things in the house, and if it's a job that just fills you with dread, okay, then the next piece of advice is to say, well, if I do a little bit of work on the job I've been putting off, then I can spend a lot of time on the thing that I really wanted to do. So for example, let's say, you're supposed to be painting the kitchen, right? But you also want to write your book, okay? So what you'd say is, well, if I select a color scheme, if I go around the house and I see what paints we've got left, and can we make one of the walls work, or can we design something else in the kitchen, or can we make some artwork for in the kitchen? So you do something around improving the kitchen that you've wanted to do, and then once you've done that, then you can say, right, well, actually, what I really want to get into is writing my book. So then you can, take some time out, obviously when the kids are in bed, etc., and get them doing, some painting or some writing or something else, or gaming, whatever the kids are doing, and then set aside that time for the love projects that you've got. So, and also while we're indoors as well, one of the great things about YouTube is that there's a video on almost everything. So if there's something you've been meaning to do and you're not sure where to start, have a look on YouTube, and I know there's loads of amazing things that you can find. Okay, moving on. So a little bit more on the question. So so we've got a question about, if you were to look at a goal, how would you set a goal to keep yourself motivated? Great question. So first of all, I would say there's two types of goals. There's a very specific goal, which is something, again, that maybe you've had a long time, that you've been, again, one of those pinballs that you've been thinking, I want to do this. So you're sort of general, you've got this goal that you've wanted it for a long time, and it's this big goal, like, becoming a movie star, right? It's a massive goal. And so the first thing you've got to do is to not forget the goal, not be told it will never happen. It may or it may not. But the first thing is to chunk it down into smaller pieces. And so that's the other part of goal setting, is you can have a massive goal, but actually what you really need to do is set what's the tiniest goal that you can set that moves you on the pathway to the bigger goal. So for example, when I was writing my book, which is coming up next month, which starts with From Fearful to Powerful, I had a whole idea, loads of things that I wanted to write about, loads of things that clients asked me about, but I had to get disciplined. So I decided, well, the first thing I did was I said, look, let's think of some chapter titles and think of some concepts that people ask me about, and let's write 10 to 12 things that sound interesting and that sound like people would want to know about them. And that will help me when I'm writing to stay specific and stay on point. So instead of saying write a book or become a movie star, right, you've got a big goal, and then what's the smallest achievable step that you can do? It's also called, in business, it will be the minimum viable product or minimum viable audience. So again, so set that tiny goal, and the tiny goal might be, let's say, it was, for example, becoming a movie star. A small goal might be to think of who's a movie star that you like, and could you read their biography? Because you've got the motivation to do it. They're very successful. They can probably teach you some things. They'll probably tell you some funny lessons and some things that they learned the hard way, right? it's still enjoyable and something like that. So that's the sort of thing that you've got a massive goal. The first thing is to set a teensy tiny goal. And the other thing about setting a teeny tiny goal and doing it is that you get a real ego boost and you get a big endorphin hit when you become a person that says what they're going to says what they're going to do and then does what they're going to do. So set a tiny goal. You're much better to have a tiny goal that you do, and then the next tiny goal that you do, and the next tiny goal that you do, with a massive goal that you never get around to. So, there's loads around that topic. There's more questions coming in, so I'm going to move on. We can always circle back as well. So, okay. So obviously someone has, they have just lost their job, which again is facing a lot of people at the moment. So, my heart does go out to you, particularly if you're somebody that's had that salary job a long time. It's quite scary to go from a salary to not a salary. So, I do salute you, and I know that there is going to be a way through this. But again, we're going to acknowledge that, thanks for asking about this, and great for reaching out to actually get advice, because that's the first thing is to actually seek. There's lots of help, so to seek that help and to know that you're not alone as well. A lot of people have the rug pulled from under them at the moment. And like I say, I'll go into a bit more detail around how I coped with it. So most of my working life, I've not had a salary job. So it has knocked the confidence, and how does she move forward? Okay, so the first thing is that you're not defined by, and your worth as a human being is not defined by your job. It's not defined by your salary, your bank balance. Okay, so we can get a lot of esteem from achieving things in life, but we've got to be able to separate the esteem and the social esteem that we get from our ability and our value as a human being. So you have plenty of value as you, whether you're in a salaried employment or not. So I hope that you can get some confidence from understanding that however much is in your bank or not in your bank, you still have value as a human being. And I know that you have tasks. I know you have skills, I should say. I know you have skills, and I know that you have, because you've had another job, so you must have some skills, right? Perhaps you have very specialist skills. I don't know what area you're in, but it says that obviously moving forward is the priority, and I agree, yeah. So first thing is, you're not alone. So breathe that in and understand that. Second of all, Martin Lewis is doing a lot of things at the moment on all the government support that's out there for people. So things like whether you're self-employed, if you're salaried. So again, check out those official resources. I'm, not an accountant, not a financial advisor, but make sure that you have checked out everything that you are eligible for. Get that free online, available 24/7 legal advice. To just kind of navigate this, because obviously there's a lot of people on hotlines at the moment trying to access resources, and they're on hold a long time. So again, get some information, see what you might be entitled to, and move forward with that. But second of all, and I think personally more important than that, unless let's say if the wolf is the door, then again, definitely in tandem with taking proper financial advice, don't be afraid to get onto your mortgage company, get to your landlord, and onto your financial institutions. A lot of them are doing debt holidays, they're doing payment holidays, they're freezing interest, they're freezing charges. A lot of high street banks are doing that. So again, in some cases you may not even need to contact them. A lot of them are putting things into place. So again, things are happening. So be aware that that's there. And last thing I want to say for you in terms of how you move forward, I want you to reframe this from you felt confident in a job and now you don't have that job and you don't feel confident. What I want you to reframe it as is all those skills and all those things that you did in that previous job, there will be a value for them in the marketplace somewhere. So I want you to think of who could you help? What industry might need your expertise that you hadn't previously thought about? Okay, so with not knowing your industry, it's hard to say. But for example, if you're a numbers person, are there organisations now that need expertise around that? So have a think about the skill set that you've got and who else could you help? Who could you provide relief and services to, that in this time, they need help too. So acknowledge you've had the bump, in the road, get the initial legal advice, understand that you're not defined by which role you're in or not in. And then, like I say, if you need to hustle for work quickly, quite a few sectors now are hiring. And even if that means doing a job that you feel that you're too skilled for, I've cleaned floors for a living, I've cleaned bathrooms for a living, I've done all sorts of things. But that doesn't really have anything to do with my value as a person. And certainly the cleaner analogy, as we've all seen, we actually need, cleaners, drivers, delivery people like that, warehouse people, etc., are obviously going to be in big demand. So again, hope that's helpful for you. Anything more specific, of course, you're welcome to DM me and contact me separately on Instagram. I'm Instagram Velody Official. In fact, all the channels I'm Velody Official, apart from Facebook. That's just Velody on its own. But yeah, if you want a bit more in-depth advice, you can feel free to DM me at any time. Hope those 4 pointers were useful for you. Brilliant. Okay, so we've got another question. So is there a perfect daily ritual we should follow to stay positive? Well, firstly, I generally don't. Hey, Laura, thank you for joining in as well as Kat. I'll come to you next. Okay, so Laura, stay with us because you're next. So in terms of perfect daily rituals, so firstly, I'm not a big fan of the word perfect. Okay, I think done is better than perfect. So that's the first thing I would say. But I get where you're coming from. So in terms of rituals, I touched on this in my newsletter that I sent out yesterday. Again, if you want to be added to my newsletter, just comment for me and I can send you into that. I don't send it necessarily mega regularly, but each one has great tips in it. And in that tip, I said the best piece of advice I'll give you for rituals at the moment is to craft the first hour and the last hour of your day. Okay, so in the first hour, make sure you do not switch on any news, you do not go on social media, and you are very precious about the first few thoughts and images that are transmitted into your brain as it's coming to. Okay, so I know a lot of us have that morning ritual of get up, turn on the news, have a coffee, get panicked about everything, and then move on. Okay, so what I want to say is avoid social media as far as you can and the news in the morning, and instead do something that is energizing for you. If that's a walk around the block, if that's a bit of stretching, if that's a bit of yoga, and whatever that thing is, find something again that you like, not that you find difficult and you're going to put off. Right? Find something that you like, because a lot of success is about linking something you want, finding something you like that's on the way to something you want, and you do something that you like or like a little bit, and then you chunk that onto the next thing that you like. If that makes sense. And then you find something else that you like that's close to what you want to do, and you add the next thing that you like into it. And by doing that, you're always adding something that you like and you're motivated with, but you're going towards a more valuable goal, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. So as I say, rather than a perfect ritual for the whole day, make the first hour of the day really, really good, and make the last hour of the day really, really calm and collected. And again, be very careful what comes into your mind. So listen to some calming music, read a gentle novel, or some, Shakespeare, or some, I don't know, something that you would, enjoy and find calming. And again, hot bath, whatever it is for you. But that's what I would say, broadly speaking. Curate the first hour of the day and the last hour of the day. Try that for a week and then report back and see how you're doing. Okay, cool. Let's move along. We have Laura. So how can we be in a positive, sorry, I'm going to be missing it. How can we be a positive role model to kids at this time? Great question. To juggling work, homeschooling, and looking after a toddler and finding it all quite overwhelming. And how can you manage it successfully? Well, first of all, thank you. That is a massive, on behalf of everyone in your household, you are clearly doing a lot to keep everything together. So I think, be proud of yourself that you're wanting to do all these things. So that's the first thing. Second thing I would say is, again, I know it's hard, but again, try and, if it's possible for you to get up before everybody else, just to protect a little bit of time for yourself in the morning. again, just so that you can set yourself so that you're not getting woken up by, being tugged by one kid or jumped on by a pet or, something like that. If it's possible, without, completely tiring you out, try and get a little bit, even 10 to 15 to 20 minutes in the morning to set yourself up for the day. It just allows you to breathe deeply, be calm, and set the kind of woman, set the kind of intention that you want to do for that day. So if it's possible, that will be the first thing to implement, something to protect you. And you can think of it as goddess time, okay? And you can also have a bolt on a bit of goddess time at the end of the day as well. So that's the first thing, to kind of give you a bit of, almost like that will release some steam out of the pressure cooker if you give yourself some goddess time, okay? Now, obviously, toddler, hats off to you. I've only got 2 nephews. I used to mind my nephew 1 day a week, from morning to night, and I can tell you, yes, I absolutely salute you on that. So I think in terms of the homeschooling, what I'd want to say is there's a video that's gone viral. I'll try and find it and link it somewhere if I can. It was from a primary school teacher in a London school, I believe it was. And he said, the parents that are trying to homeschool said, first of all, your home is not a school. Unless you've already done homeschooling and you're very, obviously you're all set up for that. But generally speaking, your kids have been in a situation where they've been surrounded by 100, 200, 500 other people, 8, 9 hours a day for, quite some time. Okay. And so that's the routine that they're used to. And now they've been completely pulled out of that routine. So he said, rather than thinking you've got to, guard their education, you've got to become a teacher, you've got to keep discipline. I would say that kids just like us are going to feel that things are in flux. They're going to think the rug's been taken from under them. They're going to miss their friends. They may miss their favourite teacher. They might miss structure, things like that. And they're all going emotionally through all that as well. So again, I would first and foremost think, how can you be there as your mum, as their mum, rather than how can you, as it will, replace the teacher? He says it better than me. But again, it's around, they will get a vibe from you. And if the vibe from you is giving, it's loving, it's supportive, it's open, it's encouraging, that's going to do a lot more in the long run than having the perfect school regimen, if that makes sense. Again, feel free to feedback to me on that. And then, so in terms of managing it successfully, I think the fact that you're asking the question, first of all, means that you're actually starting to manage it quite successfully already, because it's a challenge. So I think you are managing it successfully. You just need to tweak it. Like I say, first of all, be there for them, be there for yourself, and then again, get online. I'm sure a lot of the schools, YouTube channels, everything have, interests, different kind of ideas and different things that you could try to break it up. Also, again, the power of the outdoors. If you can go outdoors, I say I've been doing 2.5 hours instead of 1 hour. Again, bike rides. I know it's logistics. I remember taking one nephew out, on public transport or in my car. I locked him in the car once, like we got him out quite quickly after, don't worry. But I know it's easier said than done with kids. But most important thing is for them to know that you're there, as I say, and you're loving and caring, and you're a rock for them. And no matter what happens, you're there, and they need more of you being there now than they need for you to do a perfect curriculum. So I hope that's helped. Let me know. Now we had another question. Oh, it was about, okay, so it was a nursery nurse. Okay. So, again, you'd have to get proper advice on this. This is the lady before that, obviously she's, at the moment her job's on furlough or hiatus. So first of all, again, are there any services, like for example, support services for key workers' kids? Are there any of those that might need staff? You're very welcome, Laura. You're amazing, and I'm sure you're doing a phenomenal job. Kids, as you say, kids 24/7 and the lockdown and managing our own emotions and theirs, like it's no mean feat, but I'm glad you felt it was useful. Thank you. So yeah, for the nursery nurse, again, if your school is closed, they are doing limited support for key workers kids. So are there any opportunities? Is there anything there that you can do? I don't know whether it will be paid, but are there any things that you could do, again, to put your expertise to use? Also, if you're comfortable in front of the camera, can you, this, I'm just riffing now, this is what happens when we get into the zone, could you start to maybe create some content for now, I would just have the lady there that isn't used to having a child at them all the time and is struggling to do homeschooling. Could you actually provide some help, some insight, some knowledge better than me? I'm not a nursery nurse, right? As I say, I've not raised kids. So, I always say to this, come back to what skills you have and who might need what you have. And maybe that's not what you used to get paid for, but maybe going forward, maybe that's actually where your calling could be. So that would be my initial advice to the nursery nurses. Reach out if there's any, first of all, if there's any paid positions with the key workers, because of course the key workers, they're risking their lives for us. We know that their kids need looking after, and they need that educational support. So can you be a member of staff in some of the centres that's open? If you can't, for whatever reason, again, like I said, how can you create a little platform, and that might be 100 friends on Facebook. I don't know if you do Facebook or whether you're on YouTube. Can you create a little platform where you provide a little bit of insight, help, exercises, fun stuff for the families that are stuck at home, because I'm sure they will need some of the expertise that you have. So again, think about how you can help, and as I say, in the meantime, if money is tight, there's logistical jobs and there's other jobs. So of course, first look for paid things. But if you're not in a position where you don't need a paycheck like next week, as I say, maybe there's a little niche that you can create to help those families, like we heard from Laura before. Moving on, we have more questions, guys. Thank you so much, by the way. Thanks for joining in. This is my first YouTube live. Never done it before. As you can see, the lighting is a little bit crazy, but I'd rather be bright than dark. So that's why I've gone for these lights. Okay. Good. So this lady is currently going through a divorce. Okay, so big challenge. Okay, so there's an issue with partner and kids. Okay, bless you. Okay, so first of all, have a little bit of experience in this area. When my parents divorced, I was 6 years old. My sister was 9 years old, and we've always looked at this very differently, and I think it's a testament to the way we're different natures. Everyone's made of a different nature. This will make sense for everything. So my sister had a very clear idea of that her mum and dad were together. She remembered seeing them together. Me, not so much. I kind of remember us all living in the same house, but I don't really remember like seeing them together that much because I was much younger. So my attitude ended up being, when we ended up in a fractured household, and had one household and another household, there were various shenanigans, shall we say. 2 different court cases. We were awarded to one parent, then we were awarded to the other parent. So I've kind of been through that. And one thing I would say is, my outlook was, wow, I get 2 dads, and then later on it was like, I've got 2 mums. Because that was my disposition, that was my nature. I was always seeing what could be positive out of it. Whereas for my sister, she was a little bit older, and she felt that the whole thing had been broken up, and so she was very kind of, she felt she'd lost something because what she used to have wasn't there. Whereas I was, well, we don't have what we used to have, but we have more, right? So I think the first thing is to acknowledge whatever you're feeling about this, you're entitled to those feelings. Okay. Now, everyone else in the scenario is entitled to theirs as well, but as you say, what you've got to do is kind of navigate through it. So first of all, I don't know what external support you've got, but I would say that if you're not already getting some help or some counselling or anything like that, there is a service online called BetterHelp, and they are an online counselling service. It's all around the world, 80 countries or something like that. All different types of counsellors, professional, qualified people that are used to dealing with family and things like that, family issues. So I would say, if you don't currently have any support, any infrastructure, as it were, underneath you, I would put that as your personal first priority, to get some infrastructure under you, if you will, to help you weather this storm, because it's going to be a bit stormy, and it's likely to be, more storm before the calm, as it were. So I would say, prioritize some infrastructure for yourself, a support network for yourself, because the stronger you are, the less someone can push your buttons, the less you can get drawn into arguments, and the more you have like a neutral, calm position. So I would say if you're still struggling to come to terms with everything, that's natural. Get some professional help. Like I say, you can do that online. You don't have to drive anywhere. You don't have to spend a lot of money. There's probably other services as well. And if anyone knows any, of course, you're welcome to put them in the chat later on. But yeah, so create some infrastructure for yourself. As I say, give yourself that goddess time as well. And then also, sorry, one second, just to finish that. And also, I would say, if you're a mom and you're raising kids, it's not without issue. And again, I absolutely salute you. And I would say you have so much value and so much love to give, and I can tell that by your question. So I want you to be a little bit selfish, and I want you to give yourself some goddess time, and I want you to give yourself, as I say, get yourself some infrastructure and support from positive places. I speak about this in another video on people will fall into 3 groups of people. You've got to focus on that one group of people, and the one group of people you need to focus on are the people that are there for you, that are supportive for you, that love you no matter what. And you've got to spend as much time as possible, okay, around those kind of people, and minimize the time you're spending around anyone negative, any emotional energy vampires, anybody who brings you down. Okay, so again, none of this is a quick fix. None of this is overnight. You're not going to feel amazing necessarily tomorrow, but strongly take an audit in your life and who are the people that uplift you, and you've got to focus and spend as much time as possible around the people that uplift you. As I say, create that infrastructure, get some counselling, get some help, get a second perspective, get a second legal opinion, make sure your legal rights, you know all of your legal rights, make sure they're being exercised. And again, I don't know kind of what budgets you're talking about. I don't know whether you have a lawyer or have a solicitor or anything like that. But again, just there's resources out there. I can't recommend specific ones, but as I say, Martin Lewis is always going around financials, and does cover family as well. Mums.net, I don't know if you know if that's still going, but on the forums and things like that, with other divorcees, and have a chat and see who's there, who's been through what you've been through, and see what advice they've got as well. Because again, not having been through divorce, there's only so much I can say. But I would say set up some goddess time, be around positive people as much as you can, and set up some infrastructure, and as I say, get that counselling, so that you can get those feelings out, so that they're verbalised and they're out, and they're not just bouncing around your head like those pinballs you said. And that will reduce the energy that it takes, and it will reduce the impact of the negative words at you. Because if you know from the pit of your stomach that you're a good person and that you are following through on your commitments and you're being there for your kids, it's much harder then for those snide comments to get through, because you have much more armor. Okay, so I hope that's helpful. We're going to move on because we've got more things to answer, and unfortunately, we can't stay on here all night. I'd love to. Okay, by the way, just before I answer Anna Sykes, you're next. This has been so amazing, and again, next week I'll probably have slightly different lighting, but I like this idea of like the Sunday evening. You need to reset. We can Sunday set up and get ourselves ready for next week. So, given this amazing start that we've had, don't forget to tune in next Sunday at 7. And again, if there's anyone you feel that would benefit from the kind of advice that I'm giving, do let them know. Let us know in the comments, and of course, they're welcome to subscribe to the channel and click the bell so that they and you get all the notifications, so you never miss an episode. Even if something's going on, if you get a little ping, it'll let you know that we're live. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Now, asking about staying positive through hard times and genuinely feeling positive as opposed to just feeling positive on the surface. Absolutely. So yes, Anna. And this was the second main point that I wanted to make in the video. So I think what happens sometimes is people confuse staying positive with sort of rainbows and unicorns and everything's brilliant all the time. You're not allowed to say anything's difficult, and you're not allowed to say there's a problem, and you have to just keep smiling, and you have to just keep saying, oh, we're good, right? So what I would say is, rather than thinking about positivity per se, I would cultivate a can-do attitude. And what a can-do attitude will do, it will allow you to take stock of difficulties. It will allow you to name and write down and acknowledge and be real with challenges. And it will put you under less pressure to feel like you just need to be positive no matter what. Because like you say, you can't always be 100% positive all the time. And also you would be a sociopath, because it's not possible to be 100% positive 100% of the time. So, example, if you just had a bereavement, right? You know, it's not really useful to just repress negativity. So rather than repressing negativity, I would say, as I say, try and think about, there's a really difficult situation here. How can I bring a can-do attitude to it? Or how can I, and over time, then you can think, what is the lesson in this difficulty? So, for example, I said at the top of the show, you know, I had to make my way out of not only one, but two abusive relationships. And the reason I had to make my way out of the second one is that I hadn't learned all the lessons from the first one. Right? And that's the sort of brutal, simple truth. You know, there was still more for me to learn about my own self-worth, and more for me to learn around what kind of man I wanted in my life, and more to me to learn around who I was and what I was worth, and what I would tolerate, if you will. So I hopefully that's answered it. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I think through the hard times, yeah. So acknowledge the difficulties. You know, if you just lost a job, you've just lost a partner, you know, something catastrophic has happened, you know, the house is under threat, you know, mortgage or whatever, you know, definitely don't pretend that's not happening. Acknowledge it's happening, because one of the biggest failures I see people do is there's a big, like we said before, there's a big elephant in the room, and it feels better to just sort of say, well, at some point something will come along, right? And that's what I always used to do. I always feel like, well, you know, I'm a positive person, something will always come along. What happens is something will always come along, and something will always come along. But will that something actually be right for you? Will that something be what you need, right? So I would say definitely acknowledge the things that aren't working for you, or the things that aren't going right, or the things that you don't feel are in the right balance, whatever they might be, however tiny or however massive they are as well. Don't feel bad if there's only small things that you feel are slightly off in your life and you want to just tweak to get better. That's fine. You don't have to be going through a catastrophic, monumentous occasion to improve your life. One of the things I think is really interesting about this COVID-19 phenomenon is it is kind of waking people up to, there's actually a lot been going wrong with a lot of things, but I've just sort of been muddling on because I didn't think I had any time to deal with it. So that's, I suppose, the blessing in disguise, is that now you have time on your hands, and if that time is showing you things that you didn't want to admit before, that's ultimately a positive, because it means that you can grow. And when we grow, more growth is potential. You know, people with a high growth mindset often, you know, they have more powerful relationships, they have better relationships with parents and their kids, and they also often have better financial situation as well. You know, because there's certainly there's certainly a lot of financial challenges. So, yeah, so I wouldn't worry about appearing positive on the surface. I wouldn't worry about that. I would say, if you go more than a couple of days in a row where you feel down, then probably time to have a conversation with maybe a counsellor, or somebody who's quite uplifting in your life, or someone that could be completely honest and positive with, honest and brutally honest with. But then on the second hand, I would say, if I'd say the best way to deal with a hard time is to look it in the face and say, look, I'm coming to get you. Right? I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't even know everything I'm going to need to do it. I am coming to get you, and I'm facing you down. Right? So, look life in the face, and I say build, like we were saying to the lady before, build that infrastructure under, so that when you do look life in the face, you can stand there and you can face it out a little bit. Hopefully that was useful. We're going to go to the last couple of questions then, because this time's going amazingly well, and you're all stayed with me throughout the whole hour, which is amazing. Thank you for that. So, absolutely okay. So here we go. So how are we staying positive when if most of our coping even techniques to stay happy and positive, they come from external factors that we can't utilize at the moment due to lockdown. So, for example, people that go to the gym or they go out socializing, how can you maintain that when you can't do that at the moment? So, first thing I'd say is when you rely on anything outside yourself. So, for example, if you get through your week because on Thursday night you go out for Chardonnay with the ladies, or if you know that you're going to be able to get through a horrendous work day if you pound the treadmill for Monday to Friday, or if you can get through the Sunday night, Monday morning by extra chocolate or an extra pint or whatever it might be. You've trained yourself to think that it's those things that are getting you through. But you can actually just as easily train yourself to say, well, what I do, what I choose to do, what I choose to think about, what I choose to focus on, that's actually what's going to get me through. I hope that makes sense. So that's the sort of philosophical answer. Here's the practical one. So I like to do both. So the practical one is, if you're used to paying in the gym, I know a lot of the places have hyped up gym equipment prices, so maybe you can't equip yourself with a home gym, or maybe there's not space, so that's fine. There's loads of evidence that actually a lot of work that you could do is using your own body weight and actually resistance training. So, for example, things like what's it called? The one where you hold yourself up. Plank? Yeah, plank. So plank, quite difficult, takes a long time to get really good at, doesn't cost a thing. Sit-ups, push-ups, don't cost a thing. Yeah, different types of resistance training where you're using your body against you. So again, look up online. You can follow along with a lot of fitness professionals now. Obviously, have gone online. There's tons of ways that you could do it. So you could combine sports and socializing with, going to a live class where there's maybe like 6 people on screen and you're all watching each other having a bit of a giggle. So if it's about the sort of endorphin hit, then you might just have to buy a treadmill or just jump on the spot or skipping or something like that just to get the heart going. So think of how could you achieve the same result at home that you get from the gym. So just get a bit creative. What do you have in the house? You've got all those videos where people are, they're like lifting their pets up or like moving their kids around or different types of things. So there's a lot of things that we can do to get the same result, but actually we just do it in a slightly different way. So again, for that there. In terms of for socializing, and again, I talk about this in the other video. I think we'll have it posted here. I'm hoping that all these other videos and things they'll start to appear over time. Now we've already made them. This is fun videos that are properly produced, so they'll be sort of coming in the next few weeks. So, for example, if you're a big socializer like me, I'm a bit of a social butterfly. I'm going to break it to you, but there's a thing called the internet. There's stuff called, Zoom. There's things called Skype, YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, right? So what I want you to think of is, what is it about the socializing that you like? Is it that you go and, see wonderful venues? Is it that you get great service? Is it the particular people that you see? What is it that you actually get from that socializing? Do you get to vent about something that you can't say in a different group? What happens in that socializing for you? Because once you know what the thing that actually is, so is it social contact? Is it contact with a particular type of people? Is it that in that situation you feel you can be yourself? Which is usually the biggest thing, right? So do a bit of an audit and think, what is it you actually get from the thing that you're now missing? And then as I get creative around how else could you achieve that same aim? So like I say, working out at home, Zoom calls, classes online, multiple video. I've got video dates every day. I think audio dates and video dates on the phone every day. This is free. Well, once you've paid your internet, this is free stuff. So yeah, the internet's here. Use it. get online and find some people with your other interests and set up audio and video dates. Cool. Another question, and then I think we're going to try and wrap up by 8, I guess. So any questions on how we can switch our minds up at night will be greatly appreciated. Sometimes I struggle at night to switch off from everything that's going on, 100%. So you may not have seen earlier on in the video, but what I said was the best advice I've got about the switching your mind up at night is to curate the last hour before bed. Okay, so what I mean by that is be very, very deliberate and very, very specific about what you do the hour before you go to sleep. So that might be, what do you find calming? Do you use the Calm app or the free Calm videos on YouTube? Do you like a bit of classical music, a bit of jazz? Do you like a gentle novel? Are you into murder mysteries? I don't know, right? So again, have a think. Jigsaws. I don't know. What is something that when you do it, you feel calm and blissed out and zoned out, hot back, something like that. Second of all, not only that, I would say, unless you are very adept at using social media for your own purposes, I would probably say stay off it for the last hour as well. Because the problem with it is we go on and we think we're just checking that message, but what you actually end up doing is scrolling through and getting kind of like irate around people, posting stuff about Trump or posting stuff about Boris or posting stuff about COVID-19 or, whatever. And what was supposed to be, or just connect with my friend, turns into your brain's racing. So I'd say, as I say, unless you're extremely adept at controlling what social media buttons presses in your mind, definitely stay off that. And yeah, go back to a few calming things before bed. So of course, those top things would be relaxing music, relaxing book, bath, walk around the block. For some people, that's quite calming and relaxing at night. It sort of bookends the day. Pat your pet. Okay. Hopefully that has been useful for you guys. Brilliant. Okay. So first of all, I want to say shout out to Louise and Catherine and Anna and Laura and Kat, of course. I think that's everybody that was answering the questions. I know we had some anonymous put through by Kat as well. So firstly, big shout out and thank you to Kat for analysing the chat. Kat, if you can, of course, if you can save that in any way as well, because I know we don't get the chat for after the video ends. I know we don't get that. So if there's any way for you to copy and paste or cut and paste that. Not for any other purposes than just for me to make sure that I answer your questions properly, and if you want to do any follow-up. Also, guys, as well, if you ask a question tonight, if you can pop that question in the comments, I'll come to you, Emma, in 2 seconds. If you can pop that question in the comments, and then it's going to help when people are watching or when we're watching back. It'll sort of, it'll show kind of the questions that we were dealing with, and also it'd be great for me to, obviously, if you have channels as well, I'm happy to follow you guys back, or again to follow up on any further advice you might need. So yeah, if we can have, if you can comment on the video as well as just in the chat, or again any feedback, about the lighting, any other feedback that you've got from the video, I'd be very most grateful if you could write a little comment at the end. That'd be amazing. Thank you. Okay, so last but not least, we're going to, thank you, Kat, we are going to answer Emma's question, and she said, how does she stay positive and stop anxiety? Okay, so this is a big question, but first and foremost, it's about recognizing what is it that is actually making you anxious, or I should say, what is it in you that's firing something that makes you feel fearful, which then triggers anxiety, if that makes sense. Because the way the physiology works, just sort of 101 style, really quick. If we sense that there's a difficult situation, or a situation that we've told ourselves is going to be difficult, our body does this, and you're mostly familiar with fight or flight, right? So what happens is we think something's going to happen, or you get that sense of somebody walking down the road behind you, and you're immediately on edge. Okay, you have a split second there to decide how you're going to react. Okay, so because when you hear that noise, you don't immediately scream and turn around and stab the person, right? Or there's a second where you're like, okay, is there someone behind me? What's going on? So what we need to do is we need to, when you start feeling a little bit anxious, I want you to acknowledge it, Emma, okay? So rather than push it down and be embarrassed or be ashamed or say, I shouldn't do this, why do I get anxious, why do I get upset, and oh, I'm so bad, I'm and kind of get in this circle of berating yourself. I want you to say, what am I actually anxious about? And ask yourself that question genuinely. What is it that you're upset about? And I want you to write it down. So, for example, I don't know what it is that's sort of the trigger for you. I want you to start writing down in a journal, a private journal, get a lock on or on your phone under lock, however you want to do it. It's not for shouting from the rooftops. It's just for you. It's a safe space. And in order to stop it, you first got to identify what's the trigger, what's happening just before you get anxious. Okay, because there'll be usually either a specific or a handful of specific things that you are associating and getting yourself into a fight or flight, and you might not need to. Sometimes we might need to. If there is a crazy person behind us, we might need to run away, right? But often we get that, the sort of rustle in the bushes kind of feel, right? Like, oh, what's that? But actually, more than half the time we get that feeling. It's bad intel, if you will. So start writing down, look at some of the triggers, and if you start to look at them, you may find some obvious triggers. They're like, oh, yeah, I'm on Instagram 4 hours a day looking at amazing people and thinking, oh well, my life's shit compared to them. So no wonder I'm anxious, right? And I'm not being dismissive about that, but I know it sounds obvious, but a lot of us are living like that, me included. I go on there and go, they've got more followers than me, their photos more touched up than me. Like, it's very easy to get anxious in these days, okay? So have a little bit of an audit and have a bit of a sort of in a calm and very loving and accepting and wonderful way to yourself. What are the triggers? Because only you know. I don't know yet. Okay. Second of all, in terms of positive, like I said, rather than worrying about being positive per se, I would say have a look at trying to maintain a can-do attitude. We talked about this at the head of the show. So in a situation, I don't want you to pretend it's not difficult if it is difficult. I want you to acknowledge it's difficult. Yes, this is really difficult. So what am I going to do about it? Yeah, that makes sense. So definitely, in conclusion, in closing, I'm still loving these lights. I mean, I'm actually boiling. You can't tell, but I think about one side of my face is completely cooked, and the other is a normal temperature. So, just to wrap up, guys, I'm blown away by the questions, by you guys' honesty, by you putting your faith and your trust in me. I know I speak quite quickly sometimes, so again, I'm working on being a little bit slower. I'm working on lots of things so that we can make sure that this Sunday night 7 p.m. broadcast is really good for you. And again, if we get the comments down in the video, if there's anything I think of or any follow-up resources or anything else I think you guys can do, that we can make sure that that's made accessible for you. Second of all, I would say in general, like I say, a lot of people are struggling right now. The biggest thing is a lot of people are struggling, and the difference is going to be those that face that and galvanize themselves and surround themselves with can-do people, surround themselves with good advice, surround themselves with the right resources, get a little bit of extra money in the bank if they need it. Those are the people that are going to weather this and come out a lot stronger. And those that unfortunately feel martyred, they feel victimized by this, they feel blown around it and kind of feel, like I say, victimized by this, they're the ones that are going to find it very difficult to weather this. So be in that can-do attitude. Use your goddess time or your, we need to think of a version for the guys, I guess, but most of us ladies online tonight, so we can go with that. And like I say, don't be afraid to do a little bit of an audit and work out, what are the things that make you anxious? What are the things that your partner says that pushes your buttons? What are the things that the little triggers for you? And identify them, name them, thank them because this is amazing intel. And then, as I say, you will be able to overcome all these things. I promise, with a bit of dedication, with some dedication, with some planning, with some good infrastructure, with some goddess time, and with legal, professional, emotional support if you need it, professionals or coaches like myself. We're here for you, and we are not going anywhere. Online coaching is going through the roof right now, and it's going to go more and more and more. So I'm absolutely delighted. Thank you so much, guys, for stopping by. Thanks to Kat for mediating and being an absolute legend. Thank you for your patience as well. This will be up again. And like I say, as we upload more resources, you'll see them. So sometimes I was pointing to things, so so in the weeks to come, those videos will be there. And you've all been absolute superstars. So thank you so much. And like I say, please leave a comment, even if it's the lighting stinks, or I don't like your watch, like whatever it is. But like, please leave a comment so that I can improve. This is debut show, and it's really important to me that I'm constantly improving. So I'm absolutely grateful to you guys for coming with me on this journey, and I've come a long way, as have you, and we have so much more to enjoy in life yet. So I will see you very soon. The next video comes out on Thursday morning, and of course we are live next Sunday at 7 p.m. too. Thanks so much, guys. Amazing. I'm tuning out now, I think. If I can find the pause button, the stop button. Bear with me.